New Gobleki Tepe Steps Towards an Objective Approach. Part 1. From the oldest megaliths discovered at Gobleki Tepe to the most well-known at Stonehenge or the Egyptian pyramids, academia has struggled to provide us with a true picture of the meaning and origins of these structures. In particular, because of the limitations of an essentially sociocultural evolutionary model, university-based scholars of prehistory have been significantly challenged in their attempts to integrate anomalous but meaningful evidence. This video will review traditional academia's interpretation of the Gobleki Tepe site. We will then turn to other omitted or marginalized evidence that needs to be introduced and fully considered for a more complete treatment of the subject. The site at Gobleki Tepe, discovered in 1994 by German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, has posed a particular challenge to academia. How was an 11,000-year-old megalithic site, still only about 5 to 10% excavated, with cleanly cut 7 to 50-ton standing T-shaped pillars, configured in a set of rings with mathematical precision and adorned with finely carved animal figures, quote, crafted and arranged by prehistoric people who had not yet developed metal tools or even pottery, end quote, according to Smithsonian Magazine. Let's take a look at the first section. Let's look at some of the findings and conclusions about the site put forth by Klaus Schmidt. Number 1, Gobleki Tepe is the world's first temple. Quote, this is the first human-built holy place, end quote. It was, he believes, a meeting place for hunter-gatherers. It was humanity's, quote, cathedral on a hill, a sanctuary, end quote. It is a, quote, special location, central and visible, quote, devoted to very important specific rituals. In a 2004 paper, he states definitively, quote, it can safely be assumed that Gobleki Tepe is a place for the accomplishment of different kinds of ritual activities. Secondly, the site has none of the signs of settlement evident in other sites. There is no evidence that people lived at Gobleki Tepe. In Schmidt's words, quote, the erratic topographical setting of Gobleki Tepe cannot be explained in reference to subsistence strategies, but instead non-profane reasons seem applicable, end quote. Thirdly, the builders covered the large stone rings over with, quote, fill at some point after they were finished. Fourth, the builders were on the verge of a major change in how they lived, moving from hunter-gatherers to farmers and keepers of livestock. Fifth, bone remains of animals indicate we are dealing with a hunter-gatherer site. People who lived here had not yet domesticated animals or farmed. Sixth, because of a variety of animals depicted on the pillars, Schmidt has referred to the site as a Stone Age zoo. Seventh, in a 1998 article, Schmidt states, quote, the existence of monumental structures gives proof for a complex social system with powerful individuals who use religious imperatives to motivate the community to enormous efforts, end quote. 8. To academic archaeologists, Gobleki Tepe shows, in the words of Stanford's Ian Hodder, that, quote, sociocultural changes come first, agriculture comes later, end quote. In other words, what's groundbreaking about this site is that it exposes that historians got things backwards. We always understood that first we farm, then we live in communities, then we organize and finally build. Schmidt, like Hodder, argues that Gobleki Tepe shows it was the other way around. That is to say, the organization required to build the monoliths, quote, laid the groundwork for the development of complex societies. Ninth, the site was built by hunter-gatherers using flint tools. Second part, While this site contains an abundance of content from which we could begin to glean its meaning, I was first struck by the glaring omissions in Schmidt's interpretations. Now let's look at some of the facts that have been overlooked or undervalued by this traditional view of the site. Firstly, there is no evidence whatsoever that there was, at that time, a centralized organization of prehistoric peoples with the motivation, equipment, specialized technical knowledge, and engineering skills to plan and build such a temple, period. But yet the site is there. Putting together all aspects of such a project would challenge any modern construction company. This includes fitting the up to 50-ton stones into sockets hewn out of the polished monolithic bedrock. To put this in perspective, it is believed that the wheel was not invented for at least another 6,000 years. Rather than be informed by the near impossibility of his conclusions, and looking critically at the mounting evidence for alternative explanations, Schmidt and other traditionalists stick doggedly to their story of this special group of hunter-gatherers with advanced engineering skills, acquired by unknown means, who were motivated by, quote, powerful individuals with religious imperatives, end quote. What we know about the abilities of these hunter-gatherers must be rewritten, according to academia. The significance of the site lies in that. Secondly, nor was there any known organized religion at the time. For Schmidt to attribute a religious function to the site is a clear projection of his own modern cultural framework. But things are more complex. Schmidt himself stated in a 1998 article, "The ritual world that can be seen at Gobleki Tepe again does not clearly indicate a specific religious concept," end quote. Elsewhere, he refers to the loose carvings as, quote, ritually associated pieces. Perhaps as time went on, Schmidt changed this. There may have been pressures to have the site viewed in another way, to water down, as it were, the odd findings and to make the site more palatable and intelligible to the public. Thus, the use of the words like cathedral and holy may be seen in this way, as bridge words to help us relate to something so wholly foreign as to be beyond any of our existing reference points. And so we continue to look at the evidence. We note that nothing about the megaliths themselves suggests religion as we understand it, but the National Geographic and other conventional commentators have repeated this distortion, referring to the site as containing, quote, the oldest known temple. Thirdly, there is a presence of themes in the carvings on the megaliths that we see thousands of years later in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Peru, and other places. For example, handbags, vultures with wings clutching a disc, three-dimensional lizard sculptures, etc. Hugh Newman expands on this and posits that the similarities in the artwork are indicators of a common underlying culture existing worldwide. Newman lists the following commonalities. The mysterious H carved on some of the monoliths at Gobleki Tepe looks like the H molds at Pumapunku in Bolivia. Certain rocks at Gobleki Tepe have perfectly round holes bored all the way through them. I would ask what flint tool could achieve this. These holes are seen throughout the world at various megalithic sites. According to Newman, this is associated with burial sites and is said to be where the soul passes through, according to traditions, to rejoin the cosmos. These sites are typically oriented to the Milky Way. Statues of a three-dimensional infant figure emerging directly out of the stomach can be seen at Peru, Costa Rica, and Gobleki Tepe. Wriggling three-dimensional serpents carved on the sides of monoliths at Gobleki Tepe are very similar to those seen at Cusco in Peru. Fourth, cannibalized skulls at the site are of unknown significance or were dated thousands of years later. Traditional interpreters have coupled this with the temple thesis and called the site a, quote, skull cult. Carvings on the megaliths include beheaded humanoid figures. In this author's view, there is nothing here to suggest a pleasant, quote, sanctuary or a, quote, cathedral on a hill. This is the end of part 1. Please watch part 2. Thank you for watching.